I've had a pretty busy time recently. About 6 different units have turned up for review and content creation, and I've been rushing around ever since trying to get all of my ducks in a row. Well, if you've ever spent any time with ducks, you'll know that they're not particularly fond of standing in a line in a position which would mean that even an unskilled marksman could be eating duck à l'orange for dinner. And I've had some very exciting things turn up. The Odin 3, for example, the 477V, both consoles that I bought myself with my own money because I wanted to play games on them, or at least to try playing games on them in the case of the Odin, and to see how that develops. The Miyoo Mini Flip, on the other hand, was sent to me by Lit NXT, and it's something that I think has flown under the radar for me. I didn't pick up one of these things because it was first announced at a time when I'd spent too much money on handhelds. I think that was the same month that we had the Magic X135, the Neo Pocket M Mini, the Mangmi Air X, the RGDS, and I placed the order for the Odin as well, all in this really short space of time. I was just tapped out. So I never thought I'd be seeing one. And coupled with that, one of my favourite handhelds from last year is the Anbernic 34XX SP, because for me, that was the perfect Game Boy Advanced experience. It's got a lovely screen, it feels nice to play, and it really enhanced the games for me. I really love the thing. So I wasn't looking for another clamshell device, especially one that's a little bit small. I mean, I reviewed the GDP Pixel 2, and the screen on that was so tiny. The on-screen keyboard is just like a single button that says, good luck. There are plenty of reasons why the Miyoo Mini Flip was not the console that I should be taking a look at, and yet there's something pretty remarkable about this unit, because I find myself having an awful lot of fun with this thing. Even though it's small, even though some people might find it fiddly, even though it has a battery life of a mayfly. And famously, mayflies only live for 1 day, and they don't have batteries. Now, of course, this isn't the sort of device that you're going to buy to replace your Odin or your Steam Deck or whatever premium bit of kit you've been using to play Baldur's Gate whilst you think nobody's looking. This is clearly a throw it in your pocket and take it with you device. Something for you to do whilst you wait for a train or for your appointment or for the heat death of the universe, whichever comes first. It's an everyday carry, but not a go-to gaming rig. And that's fine, because what this gives you is the permission to treat gaming casually again. All of these little pocket portable device things, the things that you can easily carry around, they mean that you can stop leaving your gaming at home and rediscover those retro games that work brilliantly in 5-minute bursts, which is exactly how you end up playing more games than you ever have in years. And that's exactly why I made the perfectly portable videos on the channel. This device is perfect for playing those games on. You can be standing in a queue in a post office and reach into your pocket, and without thinking, 30 seconds later, you're back in the middle of Metroid Fusion, which is exactly where you left off 2 days ago. And that's fine, until you start thinking that the next customer buzzer is actually the countdown to the planet imploding. Try to shine spark your way through the exit door and give yourself concussion. But despite being followed around by potentially humiliating security footage, there's a lot that I found to like about this little device. But will you? Let's find out if the Miyoo Mini Flip is a snappy performer, or does it fold under pressure? Now, this device was sent over by Lit NXT, who also sent me a 256GB Surwish card with the Onion OS, which is what we're going to be looking at today, as well as a separate grip. And I should say, they haven't paid me to make this video, and I don't have any, I don't have to say anything. They've got no editorial control in what I put out. All thoughts are my own. And Bob's. Bob is the magic skull that I keep in my basement. I may have been reading too many Dresden File books this year. Anyway, let's start with what you get with this thing, because unlike other consoles, you get a few things in the box that's worth pointing out. The console itself is delivered inside a rather nice little protective case that also contains your USB-C to USB-A charger, a USB-C to headphone jack, and a USB-A microSD card reader. All in all, that's a pretty good value pack for something like this. I did see a few instances where people were saying that the headphone jack wasn't working for them. Now, I tried this out on a few different headphones, and when you plug the headphone jack into the unit, it works with the headphones, but it doesn't mute the sound coming out of the speakers. It just reduces the sound level. So even though you might be playing away happily, the other passengers on your train may still be baying for your blood. There has been an update to this, and apparently Onion OS has been patched to resolve this issue, but I haven't had a chance to try that out yet. The case itself looks really sturdy, and I can imagine it giving quite a bit of protection if your plan is to just throw this thing in a bag. It's a lovely thought and it's nice to have, but I think it belies one of the issues with this console, that you kind of need to carry a few things around with it if you want to make the most of it. The grip that LitNXT sent over is actually really nice. It's chunky and it makes the device significantly more comfortable to hold, especially during those longer play sessions. By and large, I'm not a big fan of adding grips onto consoles. I tend not to need them. But the Miyoo Mini Flip is on the small side even for me. Anybody with larger hands might have a big problem, and this grip solves that problem. It's made out of a fairly sturdy plastic, and you get the feeling that it could survive a few knocks. But of course, all of these accessories means more things to carry around, and one of the benefits of having a clamshell device is that you should just be able to slip it in a pocket and go, which you can do, of course. And that's one of the reasons that I'm really liking this device, because whilst it's tiny, it's not so small that the screen resolution is measured in atoms per inch. And that means it's super pocketable, much more so than other clamshell devices on the market right now. Inside this tiny package, we have an ARM Cortex A7 dual-core processor clocked to 1.2 gigahertz. You've got 128 meg of RAM, which is perfectly adequate for everything up to PlayStation 1, and about the same amount of memory that I've got of my 20s. You've got a 2.8-inch IPS display, a 2,500 mAh battery. Connectivity comes with Wi-Fi at 2.4 gigahertz, but there is no Bluetooth with this device or integrated headphone jack. You have a single microSD card slot, and the whole thing weighs in at 119 grams, which makes it light and pocketable, but not insubstantial. Some say it's built like a tank, but I can't see this surviving a full-on shell attack. Although with the size that it is, it can definitely beat the Battle of the Bulge if the bulge is what you usually keep in your front jeans pocket. But this is pretty solid when you squeeze it, and there aren't too many rattles when you shake it. Opening the device reveals a 2.8-inch IPS display, which is the same screen used in the Miyoo Mini. It has a resolution of 750 by 560 pixels, and that gives you a pixel density of 334 pixels per inch. Now, this is my first experience with any sort of Miyoo Mini device, and I know that the original's become a fan favourite. If this is the same screen quality that you get with that, then I can actually see why, because this thing looks absolutely gorgeous. It's slightly recessed into the shell, which protects it when the device is closed. It's bright enough to play in the daytime, although not necessarily in direct sunlight. But it dims enough if you want to play this in bed without accidentally signalling to a passing Boeing 747 that the runway is clear for landing. The buttons aren't too small. They're about the same size as on the Pocket Air Mini. They're not quite silent, but they're pretty good. They're pretty in line with what I'm seeing on other consoles. The D-pad on this, however, is something of a standout. When I first picked this up, I didn't think much to it. It felt a little bit looser than I was expecting. But playing games on this, it's actually incredibly comfortable, and it reminds me a lot of the original Game Boy Advance SP. I find it quite precise. It doesn't have false diagonals, it happily passes the Kirby pancake test, and it's well suited for platformers and fighting games. And despite its size, the overall feel of holding this thing and using the controls is actually very nice, very comfortable. After missing out on the Miyoo Mini the first time round, I can see why people like this. The shoulder buttons too feel comfortable to use. They're small and soft with a squishy feel, but also with a pretty definite click at the end of it. I found that my fingers naturally sat where the buttons were, and they give me a really nice position to hold the device. Of course, this is going to change depending on your hand size. And one of the bones of contention has been the hinge. Not that there's anything actually wrong with it, but previous models of Miyoo Flip devices have had hinge issues. This hinge is deliberately looser than those previous models to avoid that problem. It locks into 3 positions, giving you something of a choice in the way that you play the device. It opens smoothly, and it doesn't feel like it's going to snap in half. We're a little way on from the initial release of the Miyoo Mini Flip, and whilst there have been a few isolated reports of problems, which you would expect with any launch, this doesn't seem to be a widespread issue. And it's certainly nothing compared to the epidemic of failures that affected the previous models. If you're still anxious about the hinge, my recommendation is to wait, maybe a few more months and then see what happens to other people's units. But based on what I've seen so far, I think Miyoo they might have solved their hinge issues here. Having said that, there are a couple of problems with this device, mostly concerned with the size and what effect it has on physics. This is really a device for 8-bit and 16-bit consoles, with some ability to play PlayStation 1 games. But even then, you're looking at between 2.5 to 3 hours of gameplay at most. Now that's quite a lot if you want to take it out for a day, just for those odd 10 minutes here and there. But if you wanted to take this on a more extended journey, a camping or a hiking trip perhaps, you probably wouldn't have enough battery to get you on top of the old man of Stur. The other issue is heat related, and of course size related as too. The area around the D-pad gets quite warm during longer play sessions. It's not hot enough to be uncomfortable, but you will notice it. And in a device like this, there's not much space for the heat to dissipate, and the CPU generates a fair bit of heat even when running Game Boy games. It's not approaching temperatures that could cook an egg, but you might be able to defrost a garden pea. Performance-wise, using the Drastic emulator on Onion, you can get some Nintendo DS games working. Of course, there's no touchscreen here, which makes touch-heavy games effectively unplayable. DS is a compromised experience. Some users have reported Pokemon Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Black and White running, and the lighter 2D games seem to work quite well. 3D games are playable if you add in frame skip, but not everything is going to work. For the most part, I'd look at the Miyoo Mini Flip as a device that has a solid ceiling at PlayStation 1, but will play everything below. But users have had a lot of success pushing the hardware with classic PC game ports like Doom. Although if I found a piece of toast that couldn't run Doom, I'd be more surprised at this point. I even have a port of Super Mario 64 running, and that's largely because I was sent this Surwish card from Lit MXT, which contains Onion OS. I made a whole video about Crossmix on the Smart Pro S. This card is by the same company, but we have Onion on here, the preferred operating system for this device. And it's absolutely gorgeous, super simple to navigate, and you have a pretty amazing collection of curated games included with this. The catalogue is actually very similar to that on the TrimUI Smart Pro S, so check out that video if you want to see kind of what you get. But there are a few areas that really stood out for me. First was Scum VM. I love these games. You get it here. Things like the Discworld games that I adore. They're included with this. Day of the Tentacle, Beneath a Steel Sky, as well as the King's Quest games. They're all the games that I remember from the Amiga back in the old days. The ports section is separated into various different folders and includes collections for things like Doom and Quake, as well as games like Cave Story, Flashback, and Rick Dangerous, and the aforementioned Diablo. And of course, you have many different games across many different systems as well. I'm always happy to see Amiga and Commodore 64 included on these cards, and I love that these come on a proper SanDisk card as well. The one caveat to all of this, of course, is that these games will not have been licensed. So you really have to make sure that you are happy with that before you decide to purchase one of these cards. It is more expensive than buying a card outright, but the hours and hours, and believe me, I've done this myself, hours that you will save by not having to curate your own collection does kind of feel worth it to me. The choice of Onion OS is a really good one as well. You can set up retro achievements, scrape box art, perform over-the-air updates, all without needing to pull out the SD card and plug it into your computer. The latest Surwish build includes full support for the Miyoo Mini Flip's lid close function, which means that the screen can turn off when you close the lid, and the device will either sleep or shut down depending on your settings. That said, there has been a bit of a problem with the software in this. The problem is that closing the lid didn't always put the device into a low power or suspended mode. And that meant that the screen could remain on inside the closed shell and you'd have no idea about it. The CPU continues running at full power. And this leads to the device not only getting warm or hot in your pocket, but it will also rapidly drain that little battery that you've got at the same time. This is a problem with the stock firmware and the beta version of Onion OS. There's a community patch for Onion OS that forces the sleep function to work better, and I'll leave a link to that in the description below. So there we have it, the Miyoo Mini Flip. It's not a perfect device, but it's an excellent everyday carry handheld that excels at what it's designed to do. It's there to provide a quick pick-up-and-play retro game experience in a form factor that easily fits into an already full pocket. If you're looking for a pocketable retro handheld that can handle everything up to PlayStation 1, then this is a fantastic device that you can take pretty much anywhere with you. If you liked the original Miyoo Mini, then this appears to be a good successor, and installing Onion OS greatly increases its functionality. I went into this thing thinking that I wasn't going to like this device at all, and it turns out I was completely wrong. It might not replace my 34XX SP, I really do love that thing, but I might pick this one up if I have to nip out quickly. But what do you think? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Are you tempted by the Miyoo Mini Flip? Are you worried about the hinge? Would you be using Onion OS? Let me know your thoughts below. And if you have found this review helpful, then please hit the subscribe button below and the like button as well. I know I'm asking a lot of you in this video, but I feel our relationship is in a good place. That's it for this video. Thank you ever so much for watching, and thank you for hopping on board to take a look at one of the smallest flipping devices in the retro handheld world. Happy gaming.